Rushed steps echoed through the narrow corridors leading to the dungeon. The Dark Lord leaned into every step, allowing his newly acquired Anzat grace to carry him. He required a distraction this very second, needed to quench the thirst that was throbbing at the back of his skull like a third heart, Anzat already being possessed with despair. The corridor flew by one after another, intermingling with the occasional staircase and rounded corridor. Imperial scrambled out of his path, bowing or saluting. His force sense pinpointed each of them before they entered his field of view. It caressed his hunger and whispered about the quality of their soup. "That sergeant over there, he's smart and strong-willed. His soup must be rich and—" Iradox rolled back his shoulders and inhaled through his nostrils. There was no way he would permit himself to turn feral, to feed on some random bystander who was just doing his duty for the Empire. Certainly he had fed on a whim before, but that had been during hunts, and had never been near the confines of his power base. Doing so was rash, foolish, and irresponsible. He would have none of it. Finally, he reached his destination. The guard saluted, and the thick Durasteel's doors creaked open. The Dark Lord stepped in and ordered all the interior guards out. Imperial armor scrambled into motion, but they were soon gone. The door thumped closed, and the locking mechanism snapped into place. He was alone in pitch blackness. Iradox closed his eyes and centered himself. At the corner of his mind he could sense the prisoners, sense that mixture of anger, fear, and desperation. The intensity with which the first had hit him was unusual. True, it was omnipresent to some degree, but he had expected that, braced for it. And so far it had proven no major issue to overcome it. In fact, the hunger triggered by his inherent affinity for siphoning life energy had proven far rawer and more difficult to control, but through extensive labor he had managed to obtain some measure of mastery over that power, which had made him discredit this biological urge. Perhaps that had been a mistake, born from arrogance. In his initial comparisons, he had neglected to consider how the two cravings were different, how the hunger born from forced strain was of an ethereal nature, whereas the Anzat thirst was a physical addiction. Thus they behaved differently, were triggered and aroused by different things. He ought to have realized this, ought to have foreseen it. Electric lights switched on as he resumed walking, his pace dropping into a slow gait. Transparent glass sills stretched out to either side of him, designed so that he had full view of the prisoners without them being able to see him. Some of them were jabbering to themselves, but the noise cancellation ensured that the only detectable sound was the pounding of his hearts. He reached out to touch the mind of each occupant, sorting through their crazed thoughts. Many of these had been exposed to torture or threats of execution, and likely many of them would have been put to death or enslaved if not for his intervention. That is, his order to have the most depraved criminals moved to this dungeon before any sentence could be carried out. The Anzat felt his attention drawn to one in particular, one who, unlike the rest, were not cowed. In fact, this plumpish bureaucrat felt certain that he would not be here for long. He believed that his work was too valuable, and the fact that his cousin was Sif made him immune to any legal repercussions. After all, he had only tested the waters and weeded out the disloyal. He had commented that Satan could not hope to resist the might of the Eternal Empire, and that the young and experienced female privateers he had spoken to ought to desert and escape while they could. Never mind that he had seen himself well paid to arrange unofficial passage off-world, and that some of these illegal transport might have been run by slavers. He needed the credits, and in his defense, these disloyal filths deserved their fate. Oh, what a marvelous specimen, this corrupt and self-serving thug, so utterly devoid of conscience and introspective, incapable or unwilling to acknowledge the duality of his own reasoning. How he condemned his victims for deserting while simultaneously arranging for a means of personal escape once the battle broke out. He was positively disgusting, enough so to take Iradox's mind off anything. The bulky prisoner gazed up as the cell door opened. "About time!" he started, but fell silent at what he beheld. Upon crossing the threshold, Iradox had surrendered to the hunger. In an instant, his countenance had transformed into that of a perched predator, his eyes blazing with a feral hunger. The man found his voice and started rambling about his cousin, who was the apprentice of some lord. Iradox heard none of it as he stepped forward, allowing his fetus to slither out of their sacks. The prisoner's words were replaced by a jagged scream, and the Anzat moved to embrace him.